Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at the first Antor and APG and Hosts Global Meets Mice Market 2022. Today in London, but good morning, good afternoon, and probably good evening to some of you who are joining us from different parts of the world. I'm delighted to be hosting today's panel discussion to launch this event, the purpose of which is to help everybody kickstart, because we've tried several times, the mice market globally, in particular from the UK market. Just a couple of pieces of housekeeping before we continue our discussions. If you'd like to join the conversation, then please do click on the YouTube button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will take you into the chat box, and you'll be able to put your questions in there, which hopefully will be ready and willing to answer at the end of our conversation. So other than that, I'm going to carry on with the panel discussion. First of all, I'm going to introduce you very briefly to my two speakers today. First of all, Tracy Poggio, who is the chairman of Antor and heads up the Gibraltar Tourism Board in the UK, and Marty McKay, who is the president of Hosts Global. So, Marty, tell me a little bit about yourself and about your group of DMCs.
Sure thing. First, thank you again for having us here. And like you said, good morning, good evening, and so forth to everybody that's joining us. And a little bit about Hosts Global is we are a consortium of destination management companies, and we have offices and DMC members around the globe. And we operate with a national sales team to assist our clients with, again, their DMC needs wherever they might go through our best-in-class DMCs that we have already vetted for you.
Fantastic. And Tracy, tell me a little bit more about your two organizations that you're representing today.
Right, well, shall we start with Antor? That's the big hat. So Antor is the Association of National Tourist Offices and Representatives in the UK. We are the founding chapter, although there are other chapters around the world that have spun off from the UK chapter, and we were founded in the 1950s. In fact, we're just celebrating our diamond anniversary year. So Antor is essentially an association bringing together all the destinations that are officially based in the United Kingdom. And we look to work together to share knowledge about our various market segments that we all work in. So obviously MICE being one of them, and really sort of addressing trends and industry issues that come up through the course of any working year. And of course, through the latest pandemic, we've worked very closely to look at recovery and how destinations are gearing up to come out of the pandemic. Wearing my Gibraltar hat, I've worked with the destination, which is also where my family were born. I've been working with Gibraltar for many, many years. And in the sector of MICE, I've seen the destination evolve from the early 1990s, when our travel and tourism industries really started to grow. With the opening of the frontier in the mid 1980s. And we've really seen the destination flourish. And just prior to the pandemic in 2019, our tiny jurisdiction was seeing, a footfall of, 11 million visitors a year. So it has been quite an interesting period of time to work through and see the destination grow.
I'm sure it has. And Marty, I believe you've been in the MICE and DMC industry for over 20 years yourself. About your career and how did you fall into this wonderful industry?
Yes. Well, as we all say, we started when we were 12, so that we're not going to, date ourselves with any of that. But I actually started on the corporate side here in the US. And so I was a corporate meeting planner for a little over 10 years. And then I made the decision to move into the supplier side, if you will. And then I spent, now I'm going to go beyond 20 years here, Allison. But I spent the next 10 years or so working in a DMC, primarily in the Washington, D.C. area. So again, working with our clients there. and then moved over and have been with Host Global for a little over 9 years now, working with our member offices in our alliance, doing again, making sure that we have that best network of DMCs and how we can best work with our clients. So it's been a great kind of evolving in terms of my career. And I love to think about it that, I was a client for years and years of DMCs, so that I have a great appreciation for exactly, what our clients are looking for and what they need out of our DMCs.
Absolutely. And in fact, we were the very first representation company for Washington, D.C., and worked for them for 13 years and put them on the MICE map. So I
Yes.
know where you're coming from. It's an amazing city. And over these 20 years, we've all seen a lot of changes, especially in the range of destination choice, ease of access, technology, AV expectations, quality of accommodation, tours, service in destinations. And 2019 ended up being a real bumper year globally, not just for leisure travel, but MICE travel as well. So Marty, how was 2019 for you and your group of DMCs?
So 2019 for us was actually a great year. And I have to say, we were on an amazing trajectory working with our clients. It was busy. And I think that we were really, looking at expanding for some of our clients into some emerging markets where clients were starting to look at traveling to, again, new places that they hadn't been before. So it was exciting. And, working with them strategically to help place those meetings, incentives, and so forth, to really create that experience. I think 2019 was the year that sort of, we really were able to move the needle from the DMC industry to truly focusing on creating experiences for attendees and our clients versus just being logistical support. So, we were pretty sad when 2020 changed that, because we were again on a great path.
Fantastic. And yes, everyone was very disappointed when 2020 came along. But meanwhile, Tracy, how was 2019 looking for Gibraltar? And in fact, how is it looking for your Antor members? Was MICE high on the agenda? Was it a growing market share? Where were we all at within the DMO market at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, we can think back to 2019. I think the industry as a whole was very excited about the continued growth pattern in all sectors of the tourism community, and not least of all in the MICE community. And I think what we have seen through the pandemic is we're all coming through talking about this word sustainability. But of course, if we go back to 2019, perhaps the word that we'll be using more often was over tourism. And when you look at destinations in that context, this is where the MICE industry became, perhaps more important and relevant to destinations, because you could bring in a higher yielding customer, but perhaps in the slower but fewer numbers than you might be in traditional tourism marketing trends. So I think that MICE was before and will continue to be, as we come out of the pandemic, to be a really vital part of any marketing mix for a destination.
Yes, and fast forwarding over the past 2 years, which has been the worst possible time for anybody, I think, in our own lifetimes. For not only for agencies and corporates, but also for DMOs and DMCs. Outbound travel from the UK is slowly beginning to start up again, although there appears to be a lot of rebooking of cancellations from the past 2 years. And there are lots of new trends that have come up over these 2 years with the consciousness of travel. People are much more conscious about how they travel, sustainability that they're going to come across there, the responsibility of their travel patterns, wellness and mindfulness, along with the technical side of virtual and hybrid events and environments. So what have you both experienced so far in the new trends aspects of the industry? Marty, how about you?
I would agree with you that I think sustainability and wellness is a huge trend that we are absolutely seeing. Again, it was just starting at the end of 2019 that people were focusing on it. But coming out of the pandemic, it's extremely important. That said, I would also argue that the biggest trend we're seeing is really compression in the marketplace. And so it is it's very, very short term. It's very last minute in a lot of places. And again, just from supply, labor challenges and so forth, I think it's actually almost a little disappointing because sustainability, wellness, and introducing all of those to the programs is really truly in the forefront, and corporations and so forth are really kind of demanding it. But I think that the reality of the marketplace is making that a little bit harder to, in fact, implement because of how last minute everything is. And that booking window, I think you're looking at, it is so short. It's the beginning of April, and we are still seeing requests coming in, requests that we don't even know about for May. And it's really a challenge to be able to handle and service that in the current realities of where we are.
Tracy, is this similar for you? Are you finding this a similar period of compression?
Yes, I would totally agree with what Marty has said. I think we're going to be in that marketplace for quite some time because we're still looking at the globe recovering at different speeds, and people's circumstances will always be different. So things will come together much more sort of immediately to a timeline that you're organising something. But I think going forward, what will be very interesting to see will be the new trends that are set. When we start talking about meaningful travel and how that sort of then translates to a corporate world. We've talked in the past about the leisure market, people traveling for business and then taking leisure time. Will we see in this marketplace, whereas before we might be looking at spouse programs coming alongside a conference program, will it now be opened up to more of a sort of family agenda? Will corporates say, well, I really do have to make this trip and attend this event, but why don't we combine that with the family holiday immediately afterwards? This could open up all sorts of new opportunities, if you like, for event planners and for destinations. But I think it's still very much early days. I think that the bookings that are coming through, a lot of those would have been cancelled bookings that are now able to sort of take place, and others from corporates who may be much closer to that destination that are feeling more secure about starting travel again. So it's still very much early days there for the trends to kick in.
Well, while we're talking about that, Tracy, there's a question that just popped up on the screen here saying, has the booking window for My Business changed? There's two questions. Now I'm going to be juggling my questions at the moment, so I think I have to have one at a time, please. Great. So has the booking window for My Business changed since travel resumed? And is the business more last minute now than it was pre-COVID? So Tracy, do you want to try to take that one first, and then maybe Marty add your comments?
Yeah. I think we can most confidently say yes to that at the moment, and that has to do with airline capacity and as Marty was saying before, staffing issues. Do we know that facilities are open? We're still coming out of restrictions in certain areas that have been very suddenly removed, and the certainty of things happening means that, yes, I think as a corporate, you would wait till the very last minute to be quite certain about something happening. But hopefully, as we start to move into that recovery period, the confidence to take sort of longer led decisions will start to grow, and we'll get back to a sort of booking pattern that we're more familiar with, perhaps.
Yeah.
Martin, how about you? Have you found that similar to the Tracy's experience?
Yeah, 100%. I think some of it is just, again, a lot of people, were challenged through the contracting process, so they're waiting. But, if we calculate our booking window across hosts and take an average, and we kind of use that from, if we think about it from the first call we get from a client to like the curb, which is attendees arriving, pre-pandemic, it might have been about a 96-day window that we were getting, which was still, short. But now it's, in the 50 days as an average. So it has dramatically, shifted in terms of that.
And just as a question, because I know you're a global organization and you
Yes.
have, I don't know, hundreds of destinations and DMCs around the world. But is this primarily the American market that is moving at the moment, or are you finding it the same thing from a global perspective?
Global perspective for sure. The American market 100% is moving, and I think I saw a question about whether or not they were headed to Europe, and the answer is yes. I think that there's again a very much of a desire from the American market to travel almost anywhere that they can go. So I definitely think that it's being considered for 2022. As well as beyond, depending upon those windows. So the answer there is yes. And then, in terms of coming out of some of the other, countries as we're seeing travel, it is a little slower, but it is 100% moving, and it's equally short term.
And from a UK perspective, are you seeing much business coming towards the your destinations or the USA from the UK market?
We are definitely seeing some. Not as much. I think that, Europe has done a better job, perhaps than the US has done in terms of making that ease of travel across countries. So I think that for us right now, and I think that that's a little bit where that delay is from the US moving in the short term to go to Europe, is because we still have the restrictions and the COVID testing coming back to the States. So I think that there's an anticipation that will, be lifted soon. And, good luck to everybody once that gets lifted, because I think that is going to really open the floodgates. But that's where there is an expectation, I think, across the planners that will be lifted soon. So that third quarter, fourth quarter planning is based on that, expectation.
Absolutely. And we're all footloose and fancy free, and we can go anywhere we like and come back from anywhere we like and have absolutely no testing unless the other destination requires it, which is amazing for the British market.
Yes.
There's a question here to Marty. While you're here, what particular
Yes.
countries or regions within your network are experiencing a higher demand at the moment?
Absolutely. So we'll start within the U.S. and then we'll go broader. If you look at the U.S., I will say probably what you see and hear in the media is true, which is Las Vegas, Texas, Florida are at capacity. They are 100% booked, and then really the Caribbean has been also a strong demand, especially from the U.S. market. I think it's still seen as close enough and safe enough for people to go there. And I don't know, maybe I guess if there's a desire, if you're going to get stuck, why not get stuck in Aruba? And then in terms of then moving out, I think we'll see an influx. As Canada just opened. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot of Canadian business because they just, opened the business there. And again, it's a very close and considered safe destination. And then from moving, out then in terms of Europe, and especially, Allison, you probably know this coming out of the UK market as well. Portugal, Italy are definitely high up on that list in terms of what we're seeing. What are some of the other ones? Switzerland has actually been moving a lot. So, I mentioned earlier that at the end of 2019, clients were really looking for those emerging destinations, if you will, in terms of places they haven't been. I do think clients to some extent are moving back to what they consider, safe and destinations that they know as their first step into crossing borders, which is why we're seeing some of those, again, your Spain, your France, and so forth first.
Well, talking about as solid as a rock, Tracy.
Yeah.
How's Gibraltar's sort of perspectives on that? You're attached to a certain part of Europe. Are you seeing movement coming in from Europe or from the UK at the moment?
Well, very much. I think Europe is open now, and Gibraltar, and it's unusual to talk about a destination being fortunate over the last few years, but certainly we were fortunate to have a successful vaccination program very early that put us onto the green list. So in all senses, Gibraltar didn't really close over the last 2 years, which meant we had some corporate traffic still coming through when people obviously were allowed to travel out of the UK. But being a British Overseas Territory also has given us a sense of the home from home. So we were on the green list, we were seen as highly vaccinated, and people felt comfortable still traveling into the jurisdiction. And that's something that we've continued to build on really all the way through the last year and certainly moving forward now. So we're seeing healthy movement across the border, and we're certainly seeing good airlift from the UK. Yes, it's looking very promising in this sector, starting to pick up and taking bookings into 2023. So it's good, yes.
So coming on to the topic of the discussion, I think we've proven to the audience that DMOs and their associations and DMCs and their associations are extremely knowledgeable and in touch with not just their products and their services, but also with the marketplace. So we're looking at, has COVID made a DMO's role or a DMC's role more relevant to today's marketplace? A lot of things during COVID have become almost irrelevant or obsolete. We've been thrown into the 21st century, even if we started perhaps a decade ago. Many hadn't actually in the UK, Marty, you may not be aware of this. Having this event today and doing what we're doing today was virtually unheard of 2 years ago. To get somebody on a call with Skype was a miracle. So a lot of us have been thrown into a whole new world. So I'll start with you, Marty. Do you feel that maybe the DMC role has become more relevant to today's market, or maybe less relevant? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I actually think, it's become more relevant in the market right now because of, candidly, a lot of the supply issues, the vendor changes and so forth. Having folks working in that destination and having such a close grasp on who's open, what restaurants are open, who's staffed, who can handle it, who can't handle it, and so forth is more important now than ever, because there are some serious supply issues in terms of working with vendors, as well as some serious response time issues. So I think having somebody local that's in touch with understanding what's going on in that destination is absolutely more important now than ever before, in terms of that. And again, because things are so short term, there's not even time sometimes for a site inspection to come in before you're planning things. So if you're planning a meeting based on a destination that you knew in 2019, that landscape has changed completely. So you really cannot rely on some of that knowledge that you knew before in terms of what's happening.
Absolutely. And I can completely understand that. I can see from requests that come in from all over the marketplace. It's not just for the tours or the transfers, which DMCs it was becoming a little bit of a subsidiary rather than a mainstream service. It's very much for accommodation, for venues. I feel that it's gone straight back to where we were maybe in the 20th century, where the DMC was supplying the service from A to Z and really helping to manage the whole experience. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And, I think that because of the work we did with clients, if you will, on virtual and so forth, we had been working with clients to ensure that we weren't that last phone call, which was 2018 and so forth, in terms of, I booked everything else, to really understand the strategic guidance that we can bring to clients and programs in that destination. And that understanding the vision, understanding the ROI that you're trying to get out of that meeting enables us to really enhance and help you build on that knowledge. So I think that, when clients started working with us on virtual, on content, on what was happening and what that looked like, it really helped shift that mentality. So, sometimes clients are just calling us now to say, like, we need to meet in Florida. Like, where can we meet in Florida? Who can take us? How can this work? As well as, I've got this meeting booked because, again, maybe it was a reschedule and it's pushed. Can you please tell me what's the reality of the landscape at this hotel or at this property and in this destination, so that we can then craft programs and experiences that are successful based on what we know of that destination.
And Tracy, that pretty much goes as well, I think, for the DMOs or the destination marketing organizations, because their on-hand, on-site knowledge prior to a company or an agency deciding to propose a destination. They must come to the DMOs first to find out if it's even feasible. Is that correct?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we've got a huge opportunity here for destinations now to sort of seize the moment, because it's an opportunity to be much more relevant to this sector, which, as we've said, is always a very valuable part of the marketing mix of any destination. And I think as we look forward to all the issues that are coming up, and sustainability being at the heart of them, it's a chance to get that messaging right. It's a chance to sort of really have a stake in the brand of the destination, really, and then how that filters through into the corporate marketplace and through the MICE community as well. So I think as an organizer, you would want to work with the jurisdiction as closely as you can, because they're going to be the closest to the policymakers, which ultimately will give you the most certainty that you would ever have in a destination, that the climate and everything is right for what you want to do. So it makes absolute sense, really, to align that into your planning and booking process.
Fantastic. Well, we have got a great selection of DMOs and DMCs and, in fact, airlines at the event today, all exhibiting with their own private meeting rooms, so that our audience can now pop off and meet them. The meeting rooms will be available from now until 6 o'clock UK time in the evening. So there's plenty of time to go around, meet with everybody that you feel is on your bucket list, and try some of those destinations or DMCs that you've not right yet considered, but worthwhile having a chat to, because there's all sorts of unique people out there that will be coming up as those new destinations, those ones to try next year. The platform will be open for 24 hours after the end of the meetings at 6 o'clock. So please don't spend the next 4 hours or whatever you've got in your diary downloading assets. You've got 24 hours to do that. Please spend your time enjoying meeting people. I know it's only virtual, but the people we have here are located all over the world. And that is what is special about virtual. You can bring a whole world together in one small screen. So ladies, as we've said, Marty, thank you very much from the capital, Washington, DC. Tracy, thank you very much from the capital, London. It's been great chatting to you. I hope our audience have enjoyed this. I don't believe there's any more questions for us in the chat box, so we've obviously blinded everybody with science. And anyone that would like to meet us now, just briefly, we're going to be in the networking room. So you go to the right of your screen where you've got your menu, the screen of your auditorium, click on the menu. We have one more question for Tracy before I get. I'll just finish my menu and then I'll do my question. Click on the menu, click on BYO Cafe, and that's where you'll find us. So Tracy, before we go, do you think that Gibraltar has benefited from restrictions still in place for many long-haul destinations? Oh, there you go. Nice hot potato for you before we leave.
Yeah, I think from a UK perspective, Gibraltar has certainly benefited from being what was the green list and the sort of awareness of the destination which came from that. So I wouldn't necessarily attribute it to being that, long haul versus short haul, because I think that a lot of Europe is also very much open for business now. But certainly we were grateful to be on the green list last year.
And on that note, we really can't end today, I don't believe, as an industry without reaching out to Ukraine and everything that Ukraine and its borders are going through. And there are some wonderful destinations that are bordering Ukraine that are perfectly safe and open for meetings as well. So please do consider those for your future events. Don't give up on that part of the world, and reach out to any of the charities such as the Red Cross that are helping Ukrainians at the moment to go through what they're going through. So thank you all very much for listening to us. I've got all sorts of questions coming in now right at the end. So I've got one more from Sean. I'll definitely ask this one. Have you seen a change in trend when looking at flights for these events? And are attendees willing to fly indirect or more point to point, reducing the need to mix with people? That's a very good question, Sean. Thank you very much for that. Shall I start with you, Marty?
Sure. I think point to point is definitely always preferred as they're looking for destinations for several reasons. One, we all know that it's more sustainable from a carbon footprint. So for companies that that they are pushing that forward, point to point's better. And I think that, again, my opinion, what we're seeing is it's not so much about the mixing with people and the connecting. I think that, connecting between countries is still a little confusing from a travel restrictions. So I think in that case, it's preferred to be point to point. But I don't see it from a mixing with people standpoint. I traveled last week. Flights are packed. Airports are busy, and so forth. So I think people are just looking for flights.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And there's one more question here, which is on hybrid versus virtual. I brought hybrid up earlier and virtual events up earlier, and we've recently been organising both. Quickly from both of you, what are your opinions? Are hybrid here to stay, virtual here to stay, or is live going to come in and take back the market?
I think most definitely, hybrid is here now, and I can't see things changing. I think if anything, technology is going to become more advanced, and this is an industry that will showcase that perhaps better than any other. So I definitely think it's here to stay. I don't think you can ever replace the face-to-face meeting element, and I think we're all pleased with that, and that's why we're in the business that we're in. But there is definitely an opportunity now for a widening of marketplaces by the technology that we've all been afforded to use.
Yeah.
And Marty, what do you reckon?
So I agree with that. I think 100%. And I'm going to clarify a little bit, though, to say that I think virtual is here to stay. I think just like what we're doing today, and as an opportunity to, again, comfortably meet face to face and get business done without getting a lot of people on planes, and to do it 100%. The one thing I will say that we're seeing from like a conference standpoint is I think that term hybrid is maybe being misused a little bit or a little bit harder to do. What we're seeing a little less of is that actual hybrid live component where you've got the face-to-face happening and hybrid live on top of it. What we're seeing more is people doing some of the virtual hybrid before and then focusing on the live, and or the virtual hybrid component of it becomes more of an on-demand for those that can't travel and or to get the content out to a wider audience. I think people are finding that a true hybrid conference becomes extremely expensive to do both, and that those that are traveling want just to be focused on one-to-one, but that virtual is still going to layer on top of it. And I think that virtual will take the place of some other meetings that don't necessarily require it. And especially in some of the pharma and the medical, in terms of accreditation and places, I think that there's 100% a role that will live on forever and get better.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'm not even going to ask if there are any more questions in the chat box because we've run out of time.
I know. It's time to go meet with everyone, right?
Exactly. Everybody, it's time to go meet with everyone. So Tracy, Marty, thank you so much as ever. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for your support. And thank you, everybody, for listening to us. And we look forward to meeting you in the networking room. Thank you.
Thank you.